point. I generally don't make it, but I did it in case some interest. And you'll see my email if the audience have any interest in looking at it more closely, and they can do it. But I'm doing it, and so I have 30 minutes, right? Can you pop on? I have 30 minutes. So it's this time actually for warming up, but anyway, let's see. And because it's the topic, I'm dealing with three important concepts here. Let us see, the migrant population or migration, and the COVID-19, and the diplomacy that are related to vaccines. The three important and very contemporary concepts that I'm going to deal with. And it's important. And of course, I understand that many of you would not be able to grasp of all the concepts here because time is limited, but I try to gloss over and let's see how far we can do. And as I start, and I always say that it is this after the Spanish flu and the Second World War, the world has never seen anything like this pandemic. And we also have known something about it from our plenary session, and is how pervasive it was. And as we stand now, the world has witnessed more than 500 million. I don't have the exact number at the moment, with 500 million cases of infections and more than 6 million deaths and 462 million around cases of recovery. So you can understand the pervasiveness, how extensive it is, how severe has it been since the last 2 years. And this brief talk explores the intersections, like I said, between the pandemic, vaccine diplomacy, and migration or migrant population. In doing so, I will try to shed light on three significant stumbling blocks, I will say: the catastrophic implications that the world is going through, and the economic ramifications, the effects on the migrant community, and vaccine development and diplomacy and distribution. And of course, that raises so many questions. And I know that within this time given, I won't be able to answer all these questions and the argument that I'm dealing with. And there is this question that I'm dealing with. And the presentation might sound like a bit scattered because the ambition is very high and the time is given so short, this way. And if you look at the economic impact, and approximately 90% of the flights were grounded, leaving millions of travelers stranded in transit. And you may ask, how does this have anything to do with migration? Does it have anything to do with vaccines or migration? The reason is every day, more or less 1 million people that used to fly globally from around the world. And when 90% of the flights were grounded, and you can just see its implications. And around 80 million migrants were trapped as a result. 80 million migrants were trapped. What does this mean? This means around one-fourth of the entire population were trapped, whether in the destination country or in origin country or in transit. And this happened. And as a result of the entire the situation, the crisis that we have been going through, and we are still in, a total of $9 trillion in global GDP was lost. Around 9% of the total GDP the world produces in 1 year. And approximately 600 million full-time jobs are vanished. And no one can predict how many are going to come back. We don't know yet. So within this background, we'll be going deep into the discussions. And against this backdrop, vaccine development has emerged as the world's most critical issue. However, and vaccine manufacturing and export remain in the hands of few countries in the world that developed it, and resulting in significant disparity in worldwide distribution. The result, because despite the fact that today around 64%, I'm saying around because we don't really know the exact number, because some countries are not reporting, some countries are really having difficulty gaining the required numbers of vaccines. like I said, 64% of the world population has received at least one dose. This means around 8 billion doses have been administered globally. And every day around 31 million doses are administered. And you may ask me why I'm talking about it. I'm talking about it as compared to the global rate. Only around 3% of the migrants and then the refugees got at least one dose so far. So you can see the disparity. And when I bring in this within this framework of the discussions and the migrant community, if I put them in, what do we see? We see it's not about the fact that migrants are left out or they come from the poorest and poorer country. It's not about it, because the mechanism of diplomacy, the work vehemently and strongly in creating this kind of disparity. This is why we're talking about it. And even just last year, until August 2021, only 0.5% of the migrants received vaccines, less than 1%. So you can imagine, just in August in 2021, and just 0.02% of refugees received vaccines. There are so many reasons and factors why they were left out from these regiments. We can't go into that, obviously, but how vaccine diplomacy and soft power work. And I see there is one paper who talked about the soft power, though from different perspectives. They will talk about it. And this talk engages in decades-long debate over intellectual property rights. It's a patenting life-saving vaccines. I'm sure the most of you know what patenting is all about. And unfortunately, regardless of how severe the situation is, and vaccine production and marketing and distribution have all been politicized in order to achieve the hegemonic power, the hegemonic goals. And both manufacturing and import-dependent countries are racing for diplomatic supremacy. But the problem is, or the difference is, one wants to gain hegemony, while the other wants to have the vaccines to save the life of the citizens. This is the difference. One is gaining or vying for gaining supremacy, diplomatic supremacy, or hegemonic power. And the other one is trying to save their life, the life of the citizens. And the powerful countries are attempting to increase the global influence and deepen their ties with other countries. You see how the disease, the pandemic, and the problems and crises have been used for political purposes, for political reasons. And this talk obviously argues that exemptions of COVID-19 vaccines from intellectual property rights would improve global access and equity. And no country is safe, obviously, from COVID-19 until all countries are safe. It is not because it doesn't know any boundary. That is the problem. And if you say that you are going to vaccinate all the citizens of the country, but within the border of the country, which is good, but the disease doesn't know any boundaries. They can just pervade and go anywhere. And we have seen how fast was it in spreading from China to Italy and from other countries or something. How fast was it globalized? We saw it. So let me share one of the, okay. I try to share a screen. Oh, good. So it seems you can see now. So obviously, and like I said, I have given the background, and please, who is keeping the time, and just give me a signal when I'm running out of time. And the next one is, I have given all this kind of thing. The fundamental thing is, like I said, 6 million jobs have been lost so far. And how many people, 80 million people have been stranded, that I have talked about it. And how does this work in terms of the fact when you talk about the diplomacy, about the economic and the three stumbling blocks that I was talking about, right? And you see, the world has been, after a Spanish flu, like I said, after the Second World War, this is the tornado that the world has experienced from Wuhan to the rest of the world. And I said like 90% of the flights have been grounded, right? And how this has been made worse because of the diplomatic relationships, the diplomatic, the turmoil, the superpowers was vying. And the context, since I talked about the context, let me go to I'm not talking about the methodology, because if someone is expert in methodology, will be wondering, how was it possible for us to conduct this research? It was a very silly way that we had to adopt to do this research. We had to resort to the WhatsApp, we had to resort to Zoom, we had to resort to this and that. And I know it is the validity, if you go for the validity, it will be really a questionable thing. But we had to resort it. We had to resort it because there is no data. We didn't have any, because the world has never seen this kind of turmoil that sometimes I call it a surreal time. We didn't do that. We didn't experience that. The research, I'm not going deep into that. And if someone has any interest in it, and I will be able to explain more after the presentation, how was in fact that, and how many countries we covered in doing our research, and how reliable was it, and how we made sure that it was okay in terms of research. That is because we had to look into the ethics issue as well. And you see, for the restrictions, of course, it is, if you ask me definitely, was it only 150,000 movement restrictions? No, many more. But it is important, it was notoriously difficult to really record how many restrictions have been imposed by different governments, because it happened on and off, this happened, right? And you see, about 200 million international migrants are affected by myriad of restrictions, myriad of reasons. And how have they been? Like when I said 600 million jobs are lost, you know who were the greatest victim? On the migrant population, of the greatest victim in terms of everything, in terms of achieving, in terms of buying masks, in terms of having vaccinated, in terms of getting the job, in terms of getting the job back, in terms of going back to the job place, their workplace, in terms of going back to their family, in terms of getting rid of their strandedness in the transit area. So all this happened. This is why my interest now lies in this case. And the problem was, because when I was talking to some migrant in Italy, and what happened? Because Italy really were very, very strict and stringent in their restrictions, and the entire 2020. And there are many, many undocumented migrants, and they had to buy their groceries every day, but they are not allowed to go. But at some point, the restrictions were a bit relaxed, but you can go out with the documents. But those people didn't have any document. So they were saying, we are not going to die because of the virus. We are going to die of starvation because we can buy. If you go out to buy our groceries, we'll be caught. Better we stay here, eating and drinking whatever we have. At some point, we run out of food and we die here. So this happens when they're talking about the situation. At the same time, I'm not going to talk about this ones because I talked already, right? And it is important for us to know, like, what is the amount of remittances the migrants send today is around $7 billion, around $7 billion, right? So it's a huge amount of money. Obviously, it is only recorded. It's unrecorded, it is 1 trillion. This means one by 80th portion of the entire GDP the whole world produces, right? So it's $109 billion have been kind of lost. This is a decline from $700 billion. So you see the impact. And I'm sure that Dr. Firdaus will be talking about it, how Bangladesh has been really impacted, particularly because of that. And at some point, for some countries, for example, Moldova, their GDP is dependent, like 49% of the GDP is dependent on remittances. And Moldova and many other countries, around 30 countries in the world, there 20 to 30% of the GDP is dependent on the remittances. And they also share this loss, $109 billion. It is huge. You can understand how $109 billion, if you look at it, it may look like very small. But in fact, if you look, I'm now located in Brunei. Brunei has $10 billion economy. You can imagine how big it is and how severe the impact could be and has been because of this, right? And now the problem is the uncertainties for them, those who manage to go back to their countries of origin, there's entirely uncertain. And if they would be able to come back to their workplace again, why is the uncertainties? Because they really don't know if the job is waiting for them or the employers are waiting for them to rejoin. Because in many countries, situations, rules, regulations have changed dramatically. So they don't know what changes have been made there in the countries of destination. They don't know. They don't know about the accommodations, their savings they had, if any. They don't know all these things. So they have been like in a box of severe and very dangerous uncertainties, right? And what happened? Another thing that happened, because they know that their ways and paths have been narrowed down because of this, because of the new policies, changes. Many regular routes have been like declined or closed or anything. So they are resorting to illegal, irregular paths for them to get to their dream destination. It resulted in almost 100 million migrants. They ended up in irregular status. So this happened, all right? And then, like I said already, the anxiety kind of another important thing that I just touch upon, which is stigmatization, like xenophobia that happened, because there has always been a kind of crisis between the natives and the migrants. Natives, they have an idea that the migrants are stealing the job, though migrants are taking the job that the natives are not interested in. But the idea, they have been carrying that the migrants are stealing their job. But here, this kind of crisis have become more stronger. And as a result, like around, if I'm not very incorrect, it's around 22% of the events of xenophobic behaviors have increased in the last 2 years. But it was that the curve was like this in just 2021. It was not that bad in the entire 2020. And we don't know yet what is happening at the moment in the ground in 2022, and we'll see. We don't know yet, right? And many things happen like when they try to, because they don't have any, I'm talking about the migrants, they don't have any income. They have run away with their savings, any job, and they are not able to pay their rents. And in European countries, Western world, there are many events that happen that they were forced out their apartments, their houses, because they are not able to pay the rental. That happened. And many, is not just one or two, innumerable events that happened in European countries, in Western world. due to the lockdowns, there are some interviews. I'm not going to read it out because I will be keeping some time for the questions, because I know that many questions will be left unanswered. So I want to touch a bit upon. I hope there will be some questions from the audience. And like I said, it's a kind of scattered kind of slide. So never mind. And it's just the vaccine map, though it was from the, more than 8 months ago, the vaccine map. And if you look at it, and the more south you go, and you see the less vaccine. For the poor countries, are less how to say? I don't want to use the term, but the thing is, and these low-income countries are hosting around 85% of the entire refugees. That is one of the reasons. But the thing is the fight between two countries. For example, when United States came up with their vaccine, and they showed their nationalism, they said that we will be vaccinating our own country first, then we'll think about exporting. But by this time, Chinese and the Russian vaccines, they didn't think about making money or the nationalism. They tried to use this for their diplomatic relationship. But at some point, sometime in 2021, US thought, oh, we are losing diplomatically, because China and Russia, they are distributing vaccines for free of charge to around 67 countries, and they didn't do it. And immediately, US changed their policy. No, we don't have to be very nationalistic. While we are vaccinating our citizens, at the same time, we have to have some more vaccines to export, so that we don't lose in the diplomatic fight between or among the other powerful countries like China and Russia. So this is how, because of the diplomatic fight, there is a crack, a very, very clear crack, and we saw. And within this crack, who are the people who got stuck? The migrants are the people who got stuck in the crack. They fought. We become the victims. I guess I stop here and see if there are any comments, any questions from the floor. That I'd be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your very insightful talk on the pandemic 19, right? COVID-19. It's been with us, for I think almost 3 years, 2 years, more than 2 years actually. And from what I heard from you, right, it's also happening in my country. Even, we don't have refugee or migrants, so many migrants here. Anyway, the floor. So do you have any question? It's time for Q&A. You still have like maybe 3 or 4 minutes, to raise the question, and, you can discuss together here on this floor. All right, do you have any question? You can just turn on the microphone, or you can just, turn on your camera if you like. So let's just, feel free here, because we are in the same field, right? Social science and humanity. So we are human. So let's just, enjoy together here, no matter where we are from. So in which part of the world, we are humans, because we are human and social sciences. We are in the same field anyway. Feel free to ask the question. If you are from Bhutan, for example, see the names here. If you are from China, see, do you have like this or some problems about vaccine? Let me just give you like in Thailand. So not all people got vaccine, even, and it's quite surprising, here, even Thailand, still a lot of people haven't got, vaccine, even for the first dose. I don't know why, you see. So this is the word equality. It's nowhere here in this world anyway. So you can share what happened in your country. I don't know where you are from. From right here, I can see the name. I can guess that you are from China and you are from Bhutan. How are the others? Even you are from Thailand, right? Some of you here. For the others, you can share, what's happening in your country. You have
I'm sorry that Dr. Nipapon and I have eaten up all the time. And I know I would have stopped a bit early. All the time. Sorry about that.